Mr. Chairman, welcome back to the program here. Republicans insist the next Speaker of the Texas House needs to eliminate Democratic committee chairs. We've heard this before, and Dade Phelan reduced the number 2 years ago, but 46 House Republicans now say they are on board with this. I'm curious if Democrats are going to have a say at all in who becomes the next Speaker.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, my colleagues need to go back and check their history books. And since the days of Sam Houston, both parties are always represented in leadership in the Texas House. It's the people's house. It's a chamber that belongs to the people. And look, I get all the political talking points. This is coming down to governing. You want the best minds at the table. You want to have practical solutions to complex problems. And frankly, you want the House to be independent and not be beholden to extreme interest or a radical lieutenant governor or some West Texas billionaire because they want things a certain way. It just doesn't work like that.
Does Dade Phelan get reelected as Speaker?
You know what? I think that's up to Dade. I mean, he is running for Speaker of the House. He's done it before. I think he knows how to get there. I think the conventional wisdom is a Speaker's race is a game of math. And so, as chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, I could give you 64 reasons why we will be relevant in this conversation. And frankly, we are there to serve. We're there to represent our constituents. We get elected the same way everyone else does. And we believe we deserve a seat at the leadership table.
Will Democrats, though, support a speaker that doesn't appoint Democrats to lead any committees?
I haven't met one yet. And so I'll have to get back to you on that. I think, again, we're all there to do our best work. And I think that the talent of the men and women in the House Democratic Caucus, they have something to offer. We have led in the past. We are leading now. And there's no reason why that should change.
We're all watching the infighting among Republicans as much as they want to say it's not actually happening, but it's happening. I know you're seeing it too. Is there a way that the Texas Democrats can leverage that infighting to benefit them?
I think that what the public is beginning to see is something that we have seen inside the Capitol for quite some time now. There is definitely a lot of dysfunction with regard to the operations of the House. And what's exacerbating the problem is now you have a lot of outside influence. Again, whether it's a lieutenant governor or whether it's a governor who fails to lead and actually put his foot down and try to put a stop to all this. All of that being said, Democrats will do what we always do. We're going to work on policy solutions, and we will leverage our votes to get outcomes that we think are best for Texas. We demonstrated it pretty well in the voucher debate when we defeated voucher scams time and time again. And I think, going forward, like I said, when you're passing bills out of the Texas House, it's the first person to get to 76. When you have 64 votes to start with, that's a pretty good head start.
Do you expect the Texas Democrats are going to be united on who the party chooses for the next Speaker of the Texas House?
What I love about my caucus is, they do their homework, and these are folks that have, deep and significant relationships. So I expect there to be a diversity of opinion. My expectation is that we'll talk about it in group, and then we're going to get behind a consensus candidate, and whether that's somebody on the other side or we get behind one of our own until we can figure out, is there a pragmatic leader out there that will work with us and will give us an opportunity to be part of the leadership in the next legislative session.
Is there any chance that the Democrats nominate somebody and get maybe a dozen Republicans to support that person for Speaker?
Well, I've been around long enough to know that there have been 64 Democrats and 14 Republicans to elect a Republican Speaker. I guess the math works that way, and I don't know why it wouldn't work the other way. Again, anything can happen in the Texas House. The division is pretty deep within the Republican caucus. And frankly, Democrats have not been more unified. This is really a high watermark for us in terms of leveraging our strength and using our unity as our strength. And we'll see what happens when the time comes.
2 years ago, Dade Phelan, the House Speaker, reduced the number of committee chairs that the Democrats held. Let me just rephrase that one. 2 years ago, Speaker Dade Phelan reduced the number of Democrats chairing committees. Do you think come January, when the legislature reconvenes, there'll be any Democrats at all chairing committees?
I'm very hopeful of that. I don't see any reason why that should change. And again, there's at least today, there are 64 reasons why I believe very strongly that we'll have Democratic chairs. And who knows, by November, we might have 67, 68, 69 reasons as to why Democrats should be part of the leadership.
But if Dade Phelan comes back and he bows down to the far right of his party and gets on board with them, who knows if he'd do that? I can't imagine he would. And says, listen, I'm not going to nominate any or appoint any committee chairs that are Democrats. Where would that leave your party?
Well, I mean, that's a great if, right?
Yeah, it's a big if.
Who knows what can happen. And looking at the divisions within the Republican caucus, looking at what just happened in this primary season, recognizing that lots of members have lost their reelections because of this division. While anything is possible, I'm not going to put any money on that scenario.
Republicans now have enough votes as it stands today in the Texas House to get school vouchers passed. Do you expect that's going to happen next session?
I'm not so sure if the math is accurate on that. I mean, here's what I'll say. Republicans have been running voucher scams since 1957. Nothing has ever changed.
1957?
Since the 1957s and the days, and maybe these could have been, Democrats that now identify as Republicans, but since the days of the integration of schools, when schools were no longer allowed to desegregate, you saw the first proposals to take public school dollars and apply them to private schools. San Antonio's own Henry B. Gonzalez from the state Senate filibustered one of the first proposals in 1957, and we've seen them time and time again. And one thing is never changed, that there's always been a coalition of Democrats and rural Republicans that believe in public education. And even though there were some elections this year that changed some of that math calculus, I still believe that there is enough votes, depending on a successful November, that we come back to defeat voucher scams once again.
You guys think that you can still defeat it, even despite all the incumbents on the Republican side who lost?
I think despite all of the changes that happened in the primary, it's going to come down to November. And if we're able to pick up the seats that we're expected to, I think it's going to be a knife fight to defend public education next January, and I'm looking forward to it.
Let me ask you about those seats. Which are the seats that you think Democrats might be able to win in November to offset this?
Well, they're all over the state. I mean, clearly, there are certainly some seats in Dallas and as well as in Collin County. We're looking in South Texas, right here in my home city of San Antonio. There'll be a couple of very competitive races. And so that being said, I mean, remember, there are times when Democrats have been counted out when it came to the November general election, and then out of the blue, we pick up 12 seats. I think in this political environment right now, anything is possible. We've got a very exciting U.S. Senate race with a dynamic candidate who will be pulling a lot of votes in a strategic area for us in Dallas. And we certainly have, the reelection campaign where at least until now, we see the president is willing to spend money in Texas. And that's always a good sign for Democrats in turnout. And whenever people are voting, Democrats do better. And that's what we're expecting to see this fall.
Last question for you. I want to ask about the U.S. Senate race here. Polls show that Colin Allred still trails Ted Cruz in that race for the Senate seat. National Democrats are spending some cash here for the first time in years, I believe. But what needs to happen, do you think, for Allred to turn those numbers around and make this more competitive?
Look, I think even though Texas is such a large state, this is a ground game. He has a dynamic story that I think that people identify with, how he was raised, his good fortune to not only play college football, but to have a career in the NFL. And that led to a prolific career in the practice of law. I think he's got a great narrative, getting out and getting in front of people and recognizing that it's not about party, it's about solving problems. I think, he certainly head to head, can, in my mind, at least bring more to the table than Senator Cruz. All of that being said, I mean, I think, for the National Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee to identify Texas as a target state for pickup, that is that is a reason alone to be optimistic. And it tells us that they see something that we don't quite see yet. And nothing ventured, nothing gained. Change will not come without hard work.
You sound pretty optimistic. I mean, I wouldn't say you're ever pessimistic, but you sound really optimistic going into November here.
I think that every single day this state changes. It gets younger, it gets more diverse. The young adults matriculated in the voting age population, they may not know how they identify politically, but I know a few things. I know they're very empathetic and they care. I think they care about the environment. I think that they believe that you ought to love whoever you want to love. They believe the color of your skin should not dictate your success in life. And a lot of those values identify with the Democratic Party. And so I'm hopeful and optimistic in what's to come. But again, this is a very big state, 31 million people, 254 counties, 2 time zones. The Democratic Party didn't lose power overnight. We're not going to gain it back overnight, but we'll continue to pound that rock until we're successful.
Mr. Chairman, good to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.